In this video, Maher not only exposes his own biases, but doubles down, portraying his criticism of Palestinian support and campus protests as a noble stance, while conveniently ignoring his own blind spots. His distorted logic positions him as the ultimate gatekeeper of acceptable thought, crafting a narrative that not only vilifies those on the left, but also reflects his deep resistance to change he cannot control. This raises an important question. Do Maher's views offer genuine insight, or are they simply the outdated dogma of someone increasingly out of touch with a world evolving beyond him? Now let's dive into a heated debate on TYT between Bill Maher, Kasparian and Cenk Uygur. Watch the full discussion and decide for yourself.
We find ourselves in this situation where both sides are literally siding with enemies of America rather than the opposition party within the country. Fox News literally uses Russian talking points. I mean, Tucker Carlson went over there and did the whole dog and pony show, backing up Putin, basically. And on the left, you see them marching for Hamas, a terrorist organization. This is a terrible place to be, and it can happen here.
That was Bill Maher speaking to Fareed Zakaria on CNN and equating the right-wing support of Vladimir Putin to left-wing, pro-peace, pro-Palestinian protesters on college campuses who we recently learned are heavily funded by a Jewish family, by the way.
Bill Maher's argument in the clip presents a familiar yet contentious critique of American political polarization, framing both the far right and far left as potential threats to national unity. His position suggests that extremism on either side can lead to ideological alignment with foreign entities that do not have America's best interests at heart. This dual critique, calling out the right wing for its perceived sympathy toward Russia and the left for its perceived alignment with Hamas, highlights an ongoing concern in American political discourse: the tendency for extreme ideological positions to overshadow national cohesion. However, Maher's framing of this issue and the reactions it provokes, particularly from Kasparian, reveal deeper tensions regarding how these topics are discussed and perceived in the public sphere. One of the most significant aspects of Maher's argument is his emphasis on the idea that ideological purity has taken precedence over pragmatic patriotism. His critique of right-wing figures like Tucker Carlson is rooted in the claim that certain conservatives have been too willing to excuse or even promote narratives that align with Russian interests, a concern that has been raised repeatedly in mainstream political debates. On the left, Maher's criticism focuses on the campus protest movement's stance toward Hamas, which he interprets as sympathetic to a foreign group fundamentally opposed to American values. By drawing these parallels, Maher is making the case that both ideological extremes risk undermining U.S. interests by embracing foreign conflicts as their own, rather than prioritizing domestic unity and shared national interests. However, this framing is not without controversy. While Maher attempts to position himself as a voice of reason critiquing extremism across the board, his critics, such as Kasparian, see his arguments as oversimplified and potentially misleading. The discomfort from figures like Kasparian suggests a broader frustration with how Maher characterizes left-wing activism, particularly in relation to international conflicts. Many on the left argue that their stance on issues like the Israel-Palestine conflict is rooted in human rights concerns rather than ideological alignment with foreign adversaries. From this perspective, Maher's framing could be seen as an attempt to equate left-wing advocacy for Palestinian rights with sympathy for Hamas, which is a contested and controversial assertion. The intensity of the debate underscores a broader issue in modern political discourse: the difficulty of discussing complex geopolitical matters without falling into broad generalizations. Maher's argument rests on the assumption that ideological extremism naturally leads to alignment with foreign powers, but this premise oversimplifies the motivations behind political activism. While some on the right may express views that align with Russian interests, and some on the left may sympathize with Palestinian causes, this does not necessarily mean that either group is acting in service of a foreign agenda. Instead, their positions are often shaped by domestic political concerns, historical narratives, and broader ideological commitments that do not always fit neatly into Maher's framing of US versus them.
But during this interview, Bill Maher also attempted and failed to prove that he isn't a massive hypocrite for smearing these student protesters. Let's take a look.
I heard a couple of people say, or maybe they wrote it online, that, well, I'm a hypocrite because you were for the demonstrators in 1968 or whatever it was when they were demonstrating against the Vietnam War. Yeah, that was very different. First of all, the students weren't against their own. These students were threatening other students. That didn't happen in the Vietnam War. And being against the Vietnam War made sense. It was a war that we probably should not have been in.
But let me ask you,
this is demonstrating and protesting for a terrorist group.
No, you can't protest what Israel is doing. That, by definition, according to Bill Maher, means that you support Hamas.
Yeah.
Complete lie, by the way.
The Young Turks' sharp response to Bill Maher's stance reflects a broader ideological clash over how pro-Palestinian movements are perceived in American discourse. Their critique hinges on the argument that Maher misrepresents these protests by framing them as sympathetic to terrorism rather than as legitimate expressions of support for Palestinian rights and peace. This response underscores a common criticism of Maher, namely that his views on the Israel-Palestine conflict often lean toward oversimplification bias, failing to engage with the complexity of the issue beyond his broad characterizations. The Young Turks position Maher's rhetoric as part of a larger pattern in mainstream media, where expressions of solidarity with Palestine are frequently conflated with extremism, which they argue fuels Islamophobic narratives and dismisses the real motivations behind such activism. At its core, this debate highlights a larger issue in political commentary, the challenge of discussing deeply polarizing geopolitical issues without resorting to reductionist narratives. While Maher sees himself as a truth-teller willing to call out uncomfortable realities, his critics argue that his approach often lacks the nuance necessary to engage with complex global issues responsibly. The Young Turks' pushback serves as a reminder of the importance of considering the broader implications of political rhetoric, especially when it comes to conflicts that carry significant historical, cultural, and humanitarian weight.
You could F all the way off Bill Maher. You're one of the worst people in American media. And the funny thing is that smug prick thinks he's such a radical and a revolutionary. I'm going to say it even though people don't want me to say it. Israel is right. Oh, you idiot. Everyone on TV says that. You're saying the most standard trite propaganda of all time. You serve the establishment.
So there were other parts of the interview worth getting into. For instance, Maher responded to accusations that he himself has changed, making him not so friendly to the left or the Democratic Party. Let's hear what he had to say about that.
people who say to me, and there are many who say, I loved Bill Maher, but he has matured too much. He's become cranky. He's become crotchety. He's become one of those old guys who says,
really?
The kids are crazy. It was better in my day. What do you say to them?
They're wrong. I mean, they're wrong, and the kids are crazy. It's interesting. They have this idea, the younger generation, maybe every generation does, that just because something is new makes it better. And that's not true. New is not synonymous with better.
But you're sounding like an old-fashioned conservative.
Okay.
But the incorrect part is, he says, this is all cancel culture and I'm against cancel culture. Are you? Because you advocated for arresting anyone who speaks out against Israel. You actually love cancel culture. You even want people arrested if they disagree with you. So now you just don't like cancel culture when it's issues you don't agree with, and if it hurts your bottom line because you were getting paid a lot of money to go appear at college campuses and now you're not. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that going to hurt your multi-million-dollar fortune?
Right.
So he doesn't care about cancel culture as long as you're canceling the people he disagrees with.
The Young Turks' criticism of Bill Maher highlights a broader debate about the selective application of cancel culture and the inconsistencies in how it is framed by different political commentators. Their argument suggests that Maher, despite his vocal opposition to cancel culture, engages in the very behavior he denounces when it suits his ideological position. By pointing out this contradiction, the Young Turks position Maher's stance not as a principled defense of free speech, but as a self-serving narrative that shifts depending on whose views are being challenged or silenced. This critique taps into a wider frustration with public figures who claim to oppose cancel culture while simultaneously endorsing or benefiting from it when it serves their agenda. A key component of this argument is the claim that Maher selectively engages with cancel culture, particularly when it comes to issues related to Israel and Palestine. According to the Young Turks, Maher has shown a tendency to support censorship or pushback against anti-Israel sentiment, while at the same time criticizing cancel culture when it is used to suppress opinions that align with his own beliefs. This perceived inconsistency raises important questions about the true nature of cancel culture debates. Are they really about free speech, or are they just another battleground for ideological control? The Young Turks argue that Maher's stance suggests the latter, as his defense of open discourse seems to falter when it comes to viewpoints he finds objectionable. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this discussion and want to stay updated on more thought-provoking content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest debates and analysis. Stay tuned for more insightful conversations. We'll see you in the next video.